My name is Bob Appelman. I go by Dr. Bob at the university because, and I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana, because my father was on the voice faculty at the School of Music in Bloomington at IU. So he was Dr. Appelman, and I didn't want to be that, so they wanted to be Dr. Bob instead. So that's where, that's what I tell all my students, because they seem hesitant to call me that at first, especially the foreign students. And so, but it has become my handle now. And I have such a long history with Bloomington, all of the university, and then also the Audiovisual Center. And it started, actually that history started in 1951 when I first came to Bloomington, when my dad came from North Texas State Teachers College to get his degree at Bloomington. And at that time there were Army barracks called Hoosier Courts in the where graduate students could get a place to live with their family. And lo and behold, there was this family right across the hall from us, and he was called Ed Richardson. And so we grew up, I grew up playing with the Richardson, Joanne, and we knew that family. And then we moved to another building, and then lo and behold, Mac Fleming was in that building, so I became best friends with his son. And so I wasn't even doing anything with audiovisual or instructional design, although I was always interested in photography and music and things like that because of my upbringing. So one of the things, and just to make this short, my dad told me immediately that I was not a singer because you are either born with a voice or not, and I was not. So I got into instrumental work, and I kind of thought I would be going into music because of the school there and all the people that I knew, and I was already playing in all the ensembles and things like that. But I found out I'd have to master piano, and I was not good at piano at all. I was more of a visual designer. So I went over into the department, the School of Fine Arts there, and got my undergraduate degree in graphic design. And then when I went out pounding the pavement to try to sell my portfolio, I saw these little cubby holes that they stuck graphic designers into, and I tried to ask, well, what I really want to be is a film director, because I want to deal with something that merges all the art forms together into, I wanted to do something that merges all the art forms together into a communications package. And I wanted to be very interested in, since graphic design, I was very much focused on getting, all the art forms blended, and motion picture production was the thing that I said I really want to do. So I left Chicago's pavement and then, trying to get a portfolio sold, and they all said, well, you got to have experience in film production to do film production. So I said, well, where the heck do you go to get experience in film production? So then I say, I heard about this Audiovisual Center that had a very large film production unit, one of the largest film libraries in the world, and you could actually get a degree that gave you all the experience you need. So at that time, then I said, I'm going to get a master's in AV communications. And so then I went in to the department there, and at that time Of course, Ole Larson was running the show at that time, which he always ran the show wherever he was. He had figured out ways of gathering buildings that the university didn't want, and so we now occupied all these sort of decrepit buildings that were falling apart, Mitchell Hall, Quasson's Hut, Rogers on 3rd Street, and all this other stuff. But heck, I came in there first and had to have an acceptance of kind of more of a ghetto-ish type of living style by where I started living, so this was no different for me. And actually I kind of liked it. We had a great community, tremendous bustle of activity. And so I really dove in, found out that we had wonderful talent in the Audiovisual Center at that time. 16 faculty, of which 2/3 were all practicing craft professionals. Burl Blaine and all of the even Jerry Kemp and Heineck came in. The Heineck entry was an interesting one, along with all of the other people with black, because at this particular time we were getting steeped in how do you put a film together that's a good instructional film. And the idea came out, maybe if there was some front-end analysis that could be done before you write the script, even though we know how to execute it beautifully, maybe the script would be better, and maybe the outcome would be better. So then we ended up bringing in a lot of the theorists into the Audiovisual Center at that particular time. It was interesting, they didn't necessarily associate with the production people as much as all the production people were working together, but they tried to start learning what the heck we were doing and where they could fit in. So they started research, and of course we were in a very behavioristic mode at that particular time. It was Skinner doing everything at Ohio with all the Skinnerian machines, and so we ended up doing films of rat mazes and students in that, and there was a whole industry wrapped around that. Well, to make a long story short now on where AECT fits into that, I could go ahead and be a film director, but I needed to use equipment. And we found that people didn't know how to use equipment, and so now teachers didn't know how to use equipment, and they didn't, if we made a film, they couldn't show it because they didn't know how to use the film projector, or they didn't know how to use overheads, or they didn't know how to do this other stuff. And so all of a sudden the focus started to be on sort of teacher support. And then there was this thing called the NAVA workshop. And that was where we had the National Audiovisual Association come to Indiana. So being a graduate student there at that time, I was given a huge amount of work to do to try to get all this workshop working and run through everything. So we had people coming from all over to be able to get instruction on how to integrate this technology into their teaching practices. I mean, we had wonderful things like how to do a rubber cement lift, and how putting our thermal transparencies in one place, but then doing an ammonia dish, so we had places where we dropped these things into ammonia sensitive. I mean, it was really weird. We had, at the time, we had 15 sections of photography. I mean, let's see, we had about 8 dark rooms in this place. I mean, it was this huge machine that was how to crank out people that knew how to use the technology. But it was a hospital internship type of environment, because the athletic department, the whole campus needed services also on how to do this. So the students were actively producing product for the university, plus learning how to do it, how to design for it. And my mentor was Howard Levy, who was trying to also tie in message design, of course, and I got with Mac Fleming and Howard both. And so my eyes started opening up wider, and then came, you know, AEC conventions, or the conference. Well, at that time, I had a workshop that I thought was big. But then when we went to the AECT convention, we had the whole NAVA group there that was going to have all of the vendors from all over the world were presenting how they were going to be bringing on new technologies. And I said, oh my gosh, we are not even doing right with the ones we got. How are we going to handle these new ones? And so presenting how we were using the technology and then going to the exhibits that were there was just a huge event every single year for all the students. So I started in 1966 going to AECT conferences. And I saw amazing things, like our whole industry was kind of looked like, how do you make large signs? Well, naturally use a Ryko. And you've got a template and you can do that. And I go to this conference and I see a robotic Ryko maker. And so you put it in there and this automatic thing draws the Ryko stylus around and creates it. I said, we're out of a job, folks. We've already, you know, it's already happening. We're being replaced by these robots. Little did I know about the computer industry coming down the pike that was going to replace an awful lot of the things that we do. Or that we had to be the ones now doing that instead of the other things. The thing that AECT became important in was the linkages to other universities and the networking, because we met other people and found out that they were either doing the same thing we were doing, or my gosh, we're really leading the field in a lot of the things that are going on. And that's when I started to be aware of the administration that was running AEC at the time were mostly some Indiana University people that were, and that's why it was called the Indiana Mafia. That had a presence there, and we were graduating the most students. So it really became a partnership between AECT and what the field needed. And AECT was our tool, our implementation, to be able to spread the word on techniques, integration strategies, teaching strategies, all of these things that was going to be really having an impact on the U.S. Not only that, some of the projects that we were working on, we were bringing in a lot of different foreign students to be able to get trained at IU, and from Africa, from Taiwan, from Thailand. We had special arrangements with all of them. Some of us would be going there, and we'd bring people there. As academia is, change is always in the wind. So when the new president came in and found out that our educational library was generating about $1 million a year that wasn't going into the university pool, then we ended up having to be split into our academic control and have that move over. And ironically, at about the same time that that was happening, or a little bit before, NAVA was also splitting up. And so the conference itself then lost the NAVA exhibit, and we just had the pedagogical stress. So it's been an interesting path of kind of imploding in one area, but then moving over and building up in another area, and the struggle still continues.
In terms of the evolution of AECT, I mean, you sort of talked about it in the context of the Indiana experience. What can you say more globally? You've had leadership positions in AECT.
Yes, I've been past president of the multimedia, the media design and production division at that time. I was involved in, by being in that position, I was also working with the foundation and also the board at trying to look at what the role of divisions were and how fragmented the divisions became. All and when we were into trying to own I keep saying multimedia production because I'm now on the board of the multimedia production division. So that's the new division that's come back up, that's replaced the old one. And I'm still not happy with the sense of family that that AECT has among its members, and I've always been one to stress that the process that we're dealing with is one of collaboration and integration and working together as a team. And I think that the divisions have a tendency to break that apart and to have just some operation and focus just within the division and look at saying, well, the division next to me is not really doing the same thing that we're doing. But in reality, if we ever get into the business of creating something, it takes every single division. If AECT itself was given a grant to produce something, and then said, okay, now all you divisions need to work together in this process for doing the best what you'd be doing, I think it would be hard to be able to get everybody to sit around the table. But if I go in the public sector, as I then went on to produce films and industrial films and all other kinds of multi-image projects, of which nobody remembers what multi-image is anymore. And as soon as I saw a Macintosh displayed, I couldn't believe the graphic interface and how easy it was to do things. And then teachers became the ones doing it, and all of a sudden we weren't the ones doing it. So it's been an interesting path, and AECT has had to really struggle with how do you support and encourage all of this, because it's in a lot of cases there's not a lot of happy campers in one place or another as the new thing shifts from one thing to the other. So I'd like to be able to work at a much more interdivision collaboration. And of course I've been working with all the old timers. Mendel Sherman I've been working with, he's in his 90s now, and last conversation I had with him was, which editors did I think were best on the new digital stuff, because he's making movies for his retirement community, and you know, we don't stop. We just keep on going, and I'm sure that's the case with a lot of us that are just so immersed in our own particular focus that we just want to keep on pushing. So that's good, and that's why this association is so important, because there's a lot of knowledge collectively within this organization, all from the people that have been here before that say, yeah, that's a new media, so why is it that I should say, like for instance, the new thing is games and simulations that are out there. Well, we went through the process of film. Would film encourage and make education better? Oh no, because video just came in. Video is going to be the one that's make everything better. And then every new media that comes online, every learning environment that does. And we are one organization that is supposed to be able to see that it's not the media that's going to do it. It's still the darn good instruction and implementation of it that's going to be whether it's a deciding factor. Even Clark and Kozma went on and on about that battle, but nobody said it's what you do with the media that's important, not the media. Kozma was trying to say some of that stuff, but you know, we get caught up in these banters. But all the media studies that went on, they never talked about which media. They talked what was the attributes of the media, and this is where did message design go? I mean, that's what I grew up on with Mack and Howard Levy, and now where is message design in this whole process? Because it's the critical thing that makes it work. And then we are having now sort of an insurgence on just the word design. So there is a design process, and we're trying to get a division called the design division, you know, and everyone's kind of take that word and dropping it across what they're doing. And I agree that we are all doing design. We just are working on different aspects of the process. And if we talk to each other more and bridge our thoughts and look at iterative models of development, that's something that this organization is going to be one to be able to support. And the way that I think that might be happening is that we are providing more showcases of actual product and cases that worked. And when you go back and think about it, the only thing that we've had with our academic support has been publications. And it's very difficult to look at any publication or study and really understand what that product looked like that they're testing and what the implementation context was and what really happened during that. It's not documented. But if you document a case study rigorously enough, you'll pick up some of that stuff. So both D&D and Media Production Division are having awards for the best case scenarios that they can show that learning occurred out of that. And so we are going to have maybe a journal, a design journal that's a case study journal. We're going to have these awards. So I could see in the future that AECT is going to have a place that you need to go to find out what's working. And that would be, that's what I think the best case scenario would be. Because I don't see it happening in the site conferences and some of these others, and so maybe that's how we could be unique and stand out in the field, which is what was always the problem as our ebbs and flows of money that have happened to hold things together. I feel us on a little growth spurt right now. The wave is starting to swell and maybe even crest, so we've had good attendance at this conference. And hopefully when people go back, they'll say, boy, I really did learn a lot, and they'll encourage everybody else to come back.
Somebody surfing the web or told about AECT hits the site, finds the history makers, and we have a series of little soundbitey sort of remarks about why a new career professional or a grad student should be interested in being involved in AECT. What do you tell them?
I would say that it is the one time where you can go to and meet practitioners that are talking about the micro level analysis of the design process in whichever area, either in instructional strategies, context analysis, evaluation, development, media production, implementation, teaching. There are people here that are really doing it and talking about the difficulties of getting it done correctly. And so that's a lot different from going to a conference where you have papers presented on studies. You don't get to talk to them, and they usually don't go into the detail that's necessary. So networking here to actual people that are doing the same thing you're doing in another location, and that even is setting up collaboration, is what I think is going to make AECT a real mecca to come to.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say?
Well, I don't know what, my crystal ball is relatively foggy in terms of so much of the new technologies, the mobile technologies, the new students, all of this stuff. I don't know that it's necessary for us to be responsible for making it work. For a number of reasons. It's very complex, and you can't get access to a lot of the things that you need to get access to incorporate it into your teaching. I think that we are going to have to step back and look at things that are happening and really be maybe some leaders in suggesting possible combinations. And the only reason that I say we need to step back is because I think the whole instructional design field is being challenged to flex. And we have been having things which originally started with Dick and Carey model, and then now we go to any of the other AECTs. Even the ADDIE model is perceived initially as being a linear process. Linear processes are out the window. You can't do it that way. So how do you define what we do if we're taking an iterative development model, and I'm going to start with evaluation initially as being a linear process? Linear processes are out the window. You can't do it that way. So how do you define what we do if we're taking an iterative development model, and I'm going to start with evaluation? I spend a lot of time with Tiagi since he's at Indiana, and he is probably the worst salesman for AECT because he says you guys are all going the wrong direction. And his point is that we're not paying attention to the new types of students and the fact that we're trying to codify the process too closely. We're trying to say this is the formula, as if this whole process we're in is a science, and if you do these things this way, it's going to work. So we need to be able to look at the field and start acting ourselves as if we are going to be adaptive and flexible and dynamic, and not hold on to a lot of the older paradigms, and be able to really start getting into that very uncomfortable area of talking to students and finding out where they're coming from, and not just saying to our students, this is the way you got to do it. And my last example would be, if you take a gamer, they die and they address failure 100 times during every single game session. But our paradigm of teaching has always been flipped, is to avoid failure at all cost in our teaching. If your students are failing, you obviously are not doing a good job teaching, which means that the only alternative you have is to front load instruction with all the stuff that is so boring to these students, and they want to just get in and manipulate the variables. And they say, but oh my, you can't do that. You're going to fail, you know, a couple of them. And they say, cool, I'll learn from that. Now, so if we say we need to flip around our whole instructional process to where we give the manipulables and we do coaching along the way, and then we do reflection and we do all kinds of things like that, we're also going to have to change instructional design to be a lot more adaptive, and that whole process. And to the extent that that's going to bounce off of AECT and what we call, as far as divisions that are based on that sort of linear model, we need to just challenge that and just let other things kind of starting to emerge and fall away. So I certainly don't think AECT is going to be static for a while. I think it's going to be pretty dynamic in terms of change, both in organization, but I really believe that AEC is going to see the handwriting on the wall and start adapting.